Reckless. It's a word for a drunk driver. A guy who bets the rent money on a horse. A teenager with a brand new motorbike and no helmet. Now take that word, put it in front of the holy, all-knowing God of the universe, set it to a soft piano. And what have you got? The most sung worship song of the decade. And, depending entirely on who's in the room, a heresy. Same 4 minutes of music. One of them is a lie. So which is it? That's the fight. And to see how one word did all this, you have to start with how big the song got. Because the size is the whole reason it mattered. Late 2017. A worship leader named Cory Asbury releases a single called Reckless Love, off Bethel Music, the label out of Bethel Church in Redding, California. He writes it with 2 others, Caleb Culver and Rand Jackson. And does it do well? No. It does something bigger than well. It takes over a year on the Christian charts. By its label's own count, a big chunk of that at number 1. But forget the charts for a second. You could feel this one. For a solid stretch, you could not walk into a church, flick on Christian radio, or survive a youth camp without hearing it. And that's the moment a song stops being a song. Think about it. A tune a few people like, that's a preference. But a tune millions of people sing, every week, hands in the air, eyes shut. What is that? That's a teacher. It's telling people something about God whether anybody signed off on it or not. So here's a question almost nobody singing along ever asks. Where do the songs even come from? Pull the numbers, and it's genuinely startling. By one widely cited count from CCLI, the company that licenses worship music to churches, around 7 of the 10 most sung songs in the world today come from just 3 or 4 megachurches. Bethel, Hillsong, Elevation. A handful of buildings, writing the words that come out of millions of mouths every Sunday morning. And do you see what that means? Whoever writes the songs is quietly writing the theology. The line you actually remember at 2 in the morning in a hospital corridor isn't from the sermon. It's from the chorus. And a very small number of people now own the chorus. So when the critics squared up to Reckless Love, a lot of them weren't really staring at one song. They were staring at that. A pipeline. And they did not trust what was on the other end of it. And here's a detail worth stopping on. This whole war can only happen in one kind of church. Ask a Catholic what he thinks of the reckless love controversy. Ask an Orthodox believer. You'll mostly get a blank stare. And not because they'd love the theology. It's because the song isn't in their world at all. They sing liturgy, chant, words locked in place centuries ago that nobody is editing this year. Can you have a reckless love controversy in a church that hasn't swapped its songs since before your grandfather was born? You can't. You can only have it here, in the corner of the church that hands the microphone to a stranger and lets him write something brand new for Sunday. The fight is the price of the freedom. So, the word. The chorus opens, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Sing it in a packed room and it slides right past you. But put it in front of a theologian, and one word lights up like a smoke alarm. Reckless. And what does that word actually mean? Crack open a dictionary, and it's not gentle. Heedless of the consequences. Rash. Careless. Without regard for the danger. So the question drops with a thud. Can that word, in any sense at all, be true of God? For a lot of very serious people, the answer was a flat no. And was their case just fussiness? Not even close. Writing in The Federalist, Georgie Borman put it bluntly: God takes no risks, because a God who is all-powerful and all-knowing by his very nature cannot take one. Reckless means heedless of the outcome, and God is never heedless of the outcome. He knows the end before the beginning. Then there's Andrew Gabriel, and don't skip past this one, because Gabriel is Assemblies of God. Charismatic. The exact same family the song came out of. So this was never just stern reformed men glaring at a worship band. This was that world arguing with itself. Can you split God from his own attributes? Gabriel asked. If his love is reckless, then in that act, God is reckless. Even John Piper, asked point blank, stepped carefully. Push the word too literally, he warned. And it starts to suggest a God who takes risks he can't see coming, and that would be genuine heresy. Though even Piper admitted he wasn't sure that's what Asbury meant. But do you hear what's underneath every one of those objections? Words catechize. A song this big isn't just expressing something, it's forming something, in millions of people, one repeat at a time. Sloppy words about God don't stay sloppy. They settle. They quietly harden into what people just assume is true. So to the critics, this was never nitpicking a lyric. This was guarding the henhouse, and then it got personal, because the objection stopped being only about the word. Some critics pointed straight past the song to the building behind it. Bethel, they said, comes with a reputation, a cluster of practices they find strange, or worse, from claims of gold dust drifting down in the services to the one critics love to name, so-called grave soaking. Now Bethel would fight that framing, and we're not here to hold a trial. But the critics' point was sharp and practical. When you sing a Bethel song, you're not just borrowing a tune. You're endorsing a brand. And, follow the money. Are you maybe funding it? Because how does church music actually pay out? Every time a congregation throws those words up on the screen, it reports them to CCLI, and a slice of the licensing money flows back to whoever wrote them. So to a certain kind of critic, singing Reckless Love on a Sunday wasn't neutral at all. It was a little check, cut every single week, to a movement they believed was dangerous. And a growing number of pastors started saying the quiet part out loud, so maybe we just don't sing any of it. Pull the whole catalog. Bethel, Hillsong, all of it. So now you can see it. The word was never the whole war. The word was just where the war finally caught fire. But didn't the man who wrote it get a say? He did. And was it a dodge? No, and that's the surprise. Cory Asbury's answer, boiled down, was this: God himself is not reckless. Not for a single second. What's reckless is the way he loves, the manner of it. And he pointed dead at the picture underneath the whole song. A shepherd, leaving 99 safe sheep out in the open field to go chase down the one that wandered off. Do the math on that. Coldly. It's a terrible trade, isn't it? You do not risk 99 for one. It doesn't add up. And yet, that is exactly the story Jesus tells about how God comes after people. A love so lopsided, so unbothered by its own cost, that from the outside it looks completely wild. Not careless about us. Careless about himself. And which passage did Asbury reach for? Luke 15. The lost sheep. The very same page the critics were standing on. He wasn't running from Scripture. He was reading it right beside them. And was he even inventing the move? Hardly. Because has worship ever been careful, measured? 300 years ago, Isaac Watts wrote, "Love so amazing, so divine, demands my soul, my life, my all." A wild, total, reckless-sounding claim, sung in the stiffest churches on earth ever since, and nobody's dragging Watts before a committee. And it wasn't just Bethel's fanbase saying so. Writing in Relevant, Andre Henry said it flatly. No, this song isn't heresy. It's standing in a very long line of worship that grabs for language too big to be safe. Which forces the harder question. The one that flips the whole thing upside down. What if reckless isn't the sloppiest word in the song? What if it's the most biblical one? Run it back through the book the critics are defending. The father of the prodigal son spots the boy while he's still a long way off. And what does he do? He runs. A grown patriarch, hiking up his robe, sprinting down a public road toward the son who torched the family name. In that world, that isn't dignity. That's a scandal. It's reckless. And the cross itself. An innocent man paying a debt he never owed, for people actively spitting in his face. By every rule of fairness and common sense, that's the worst deal ever struck. Grace overpays. On purpose. Every single time. So maybe here's the uncomfortable thought. The critics didn't catch the song being unbiblical. They flinched at the one thing the Bible will not stop doing, which lands us on the twist almost nobody in 2018 seemed to notice. Go back to those two rooms, screaming at each other. Asbury said God is not reckless. His sharpest critics said God is not reckless. On the actual doctrine, the nature of God, how much space was between them? None. So what were they really fighting about? Not God. They were fighting about what a worship song even is. Is a lyric, a poem, measured by what it stirs in the heart of the one being carried home? Or is it a creed, sung by millions, and so fair game to weigh word by word for what it teaches? And here's the sting. Both answers are right. The critics are genuinely correct that a giant song disciples people. That's not pedantry, that's just pastoral reality. And Asbury is genuinely correct that grace, seen from the sheep's eyes, looks scandalously, wildly extravagant, which is the oldest instinct in the whole history of worship. Two rooms. Same God. Same parable. Both of them mistaking a fight about genre and about who gets to write the songs for a trial about heresy. And that reformed reflex, the one that slams the brakes the instant it hears reckless next to God, does it deserve a smirk? No. It deserves respect. Because that reflex comes from something good. The instinct to guard God's sovereignty, His total knowledge, His deliberate grace. Grace that never misses. Never gambles. A rescue planned before the foundation of the world, where nothing is a risk to God. If you believe that, the word is going to make you flinch, and the flinch is honest. And yet, doesn't that same tradition open its mouth on Sunday and sing that grace is amazing, overwhelming, that it demands your soul, your life, your all? Bold language that squeezed as hard as they squeezed reckless would strain too. So the grown-up verdict lands somewhere careful. Not heresy. The fair read is that the word is a defensible poem, not a false doctrine. But not quit worrying, either. The worry about how a massive song shapes people is real and worth taking seriously. Keep the caution. Drop the contempt. And keep asking, with clear eyes, who exactly is writing the church's songs, without convicting every songwriter of a crime. So, back to where we started. One word, two meanings, hanging entirely on whether you're the shepherd doing the arithmetic or the sheep being carried home. The same parable, quoted by both sides of a war they never realized they were on the same side of. You're allowed to decide the word is too loose to hand a room full of people. And a huge slice of the church decided they simply could not stop singing it. But maybe the real question was never whether God's love is reckless. Maybe it's the one the parable leaves just hanging there. A shepherd, turning his back on 99 safe sheep, walking out into the dark, after the one that ran. Reckless. Or the most deliberate thing love has ever done. That's the question still on the table.